this is just gonna be a little quick PSA. Don't release your pets into the wild. Yeah, sorry, I just realized how dark my mouth is. I just had a grape popsicle. Anyways, but don't release your pets in the wild. It feels like this should be really obvious, but a lot of people still fucking do it. And I'm like, why? Why? Why would you do that? Like, okay, you got a pet, not suiting you anymore. You're realizing, I was wrong, this pet is no good for me. Don't fucking be like, well, it's an animal, let's throw it in the wild. I'd be like fucking throwing you in the middle of the fucking nowhere without any fucking amenities, sorry. You wouldn't be able to survive. So these animals can't survive either because they've been fully domesticated. They've only known domesticated life. They haven't known the wild, just like most human beings have known, you know, essentially domesticated life, and they haven't known having to live out in the wild, having to hunt their food, and having to, you know, protect themselves against predators, and find their own shelter. All that shit's been provided to them their whole lives. They don't know anything. Some animals manage to survive in the wild okay, like ones that haven't been as fully domesticated, like ones that can still hunt, such as cats and a lot of reptiles. But the problem is that a lot of times those, like cats, actually, feral cats are a huge problem across the world. Sorry, around the world, not across the world. And the thing is with reptiles is that most people who own reptiles as pets don't live in their native environment. So when you release that reptile into the wild, you can risk two things happening. One, the reptile dies because, I remember when I went to get my pet mice, I got them from this guy who kind of ran a reptile shelter, and that's why he had mice and everything else. He sold them as feeders or pets or whatever, so I got them as pets. But anyways, and he ran a reptile, mostly snake shelter, because he said, he was telling me that so many people in Canada, this is in Canada by the way, they get a pet snake, and they're like, I don't want this pet snake anymore, so they release it into the wild. I don't know if you've noticed, but snakes are exothermic, not endothermic, in case you don't know what those words are. Endothermic is warm-blooded, essentially, and exothermic is cold-blooded, essentially, basically meaning endothermic, we produce our own heat. Exothermic, they can't. They have to get heat from outside. So I don't know if you guys who are doing this, have been living in Canada, like, at all for, like, the whole course of a year, but I don't know if you noticed, but it kind of gets cold here, so most snakes won't survive minus 25 temperatures. This is 25 Celsius, because unlike US, I know a lot of Americans are out there, but the rest of the world here uses Celsius, sorry. Anyways, so they're not going to survive, and the second thing that can happen, and also there's predators that they aren't having to deal with in the deserts that they usually come from, and they don't have the same amount of prey in the same sort of places to hide and everything else. But the second problem, which is actually worse than the first, is that the reptile doesn't die, and that it survives and it procreates. And I know a lot of people are like, how is that a bad thing? Well, it's a good thing for the individual reptiles, but it's a bad thing for the environment. Because you're introducing a species that's not native to that area, and they very well could completely decimate the environment and cause several other species to go extinct. Now, this often happens as a result of most pets that are released into the wild, and I kind of was talking about reptiles there because they're more likely to die in the environment, but other domesticated pets are also very much likely to die out in the wild because of the reason I mentioned earlier. But even things like fish, you shouldn't release into ponds or whatever unless you know for a fact that the species of fish lives in that part of the world. For example, goldfish should never be released in the wild unless you live in, like, Japan, which is where they come from. So, betta fish are a tropical fish, so unless you live in a tropical place, don't be doing that either. And the thing I see that's awful is when they release domesticated rats into the wild. The domesticated mouse, they're not very much different from wild mice, but other than they're cleaner. But that's because you keep their environment clean so they don't get as much diseases and whatever, and they haven't been exposed to that. But anyways, but a domesticated rat is as domesticated as a dog. They can't fucking survive. And same thing with most other rodents that people keep as pets. And the same thing goes for ferrets and dogs and actually even cats a lot of the time. They can't survive in the wild. You might think, oh, well, this animal, you know, they're a carnivore, they can hunt. No, they fucking can't. And I've talked about ferrets specifically in the past about, I see this on videos. I don't see it so much anymore, but especially when I was first looking into getting a pet ferret, I saw this a lot on videos with comments like, oh, that ferret would be happier in the wild and whatever. It's like, bitch, no. My ferret can't hunt worth shit, and she hates meat and wants to eat non-meat all the time, even though she's an obligate carnivore. So that would just end badly for her. And, like, out of my 2 cats that I have, I think Bear would survive better in the wild than Winnie. But, even then, and a lot of times that these cats, like, for example, my cats, even, like, maybe young Bear would, but old Bear, he's 9 years old now, he wouldn't be able to survive in the wild anymore. When he was young, he was, like, an avid hunter, and he is half Norwegian forest cat, so, I mean, he could handle the wild weather, he could handle the weather no problem, but other than that, no, because he is also half Ragamuffin, which are, like, super domesticated, unlike the Norwegian forest cat, which is less domesticated, so. Oh yeah, I found out the breeds of my cats yesterday. Anyways, yeah, I've had them for like 8 years, but I haven't known their breeds other than Winnie, who's an American Short. I'm getting off track. So yeah, don't be releasing your pets into the wild. That's just no, because it'll either end in the pet getting killed or it will end up fucking up the environment. And the worst is when people put babies out in the wild. Why would you do that? Like the poor little, like they'll put the box of kittens out and I'm like, oh my god, why would you do that to poor little babies? Drop them off at a shelter. I swear to god they'll get adopted right away. Because everyone fucking loves kittens. Actually like people go in there and they want to adopt a kitten. They don't want to adopt an adult cat, which actually is really awful. But yeah, why would you do that? Poor babies. They're babies. They didn't ask to be born. Just spay or neuter your pets, especially, because that's the leading cause of pets getting abandoned, is that they have a pet, the pet gets pregnant, and they're stuck with a litter of... They're stuck with pets that they didn't want. So, yeah, spay and neuter your pets, except for, like, small rodents, because, like, they're only gonna live, like, 2 years anyway, so whatever. But, yeah. Thanks for watching.